Hello, welcome to the Mind Over Finger podcast. This is episode 196. I have yet another great conversation for you today. I speak with the brilliant mind and the insightful soul behind classical wellness, Jalayne Mitchell. Jalayne is a cellist originally from Seattle and pursuing graduate work at Rice University, and she created classical wellness to help musicians raise their awareness about mental health in the classical music community. With classical wellness, you have a space to explore all of these avenues, all of these ways that you can bring more wellness, more mental health in your musical journey. And one of Jalayne's objective is that classical musicians can do the work that they have to do without having to sacrifice their well-being. And I know we can all stand behind that, right? We had a lot of fun. We talked about many things. We talked about trauma and mental health in the music industry. We talked about a more holistic approach to a career in music, the concept of self doubt and the importance of managing it, setting healthy boundaries for ourselves. Jalayne shared insights on business and self discovery in music, and so much more. I know you're going to walk away completely inspired by this conversation with Jalayne. And before I bring her in, I want to tell you that I'm excited that the doors, the Music Mastery Experience, my online coaching program, are open. This is the best coaching program for musicians. Whether you're wanting to win an audition, perform better, move past that plateau in your career, enjoy practicing and playing, and really reclaim your empowerment in your musical journey. While the Music Mastery Experience is the program that was specifically designed for you. Inside the Music Mastery Experience, I cover everything you need for this exhilarating musical journey. We cover every aspect of performance preparation from the first time you lay eye on the score until you hop on stage filled with confidence. But we go much, much deeper. The Music Mastery Experience is a holistic program where you're going to receive powerful life coaching so that you can gain confidence in every aspect of your life. So, if that sounds good to you, if you're looking to experience confidence every step of the way, as you practice, as you perform, as you make decisions about your musical journey and your musical career, if you want to experience more joy in your musical journey, well, this is the program. You're going to get all of the information that you need, the support, the guidance, and a vibrant community of supportive musicians who are going to be there for you every step of the way. So go to mindoverfinger.com right now and find all of the information and book your call today. Again, that's mindoverfinger.com/MME. All the information is there. Book your call with me during the conversation, which has no strings attached, by the way. We're going to talk about you, about where you are right now, about your dreams, about your hopes, and we're going to make a plan to get you there. So, if you're wanting to get past that plateau, if you're wanting to grow your career, if you want to go further on your musical journey while feeling happier, while feeling confident, well, the Music Mastery Experience is there for you. So again, mindoverfinger.com/MME, book your free call, let's talk, and let's get you where you want to be. Now, on to the conversation with Jalayne. Have a fantastic time. And until next time, I send you all the best and I say à bientôt. Jalayne Mitchell, it's so great to have you on the show.
It's so great to be here. I've been listening for ages, so it feels like a dream to actually be on the podcast now.
Jalayne, you have grown over the last few years to be someone that I would describe as a source of light for so many musicians, such a great inspiration. And I would love to hear about your story in your own words. So please let us know how that unfolded for you.
Well, mental health has always been very close to me, even before I became a musician, because my mom struggled with mental health issues. So I was in the middle of very intense things from a very, very young age. And I started music pretty late compared to my peers. My first lesson was at 16, and so I had this unique perspective because you know, I wasn't playing since I was 4, so I didn't really have the indoctrinations, to for lack of a better term. So when I started, I could kinda see or sense what was wrong in a way, but it took many years for me to, 1, feel confident enough to address it internally, and even longer for me to, start classical wellness. But once COVID happened, I figured that there were a lot of things that I wanted to address that I didn't want to deal with personally in this field. And I thought that there wasn't a better way to do it than to use social media to like get people talking. And I didn't even know if it would work. At the beginning, I was just doing it for myself because I felt at a crossroads, and I felt like I want to pursue music because I love it, but with the way things are right now, I can't pursue that. If things stay the way that they are, I can't pursue it. So I started this in hopes of, fixing some internal battle. And also, of course, I hoped people would listen, but at the beginning I had no idea if anyone cared or if I was like gonna ruin my chances of a career or something. But it felt worth it at the time, and I can't believe how worth it was. I still am kind of in shock of how many people resonate with what I was saying or what I am saying. And it's really it gives me so much hope for music because I loved music and I was really torn up about, you know, the way that things were. So much so that I was willing to quit, but I'm so glad that I didn't because music is like the best. Not to be biased, but
I agree with you. And, I think the word that you use, indoctrination, is exactly the right word because there are so many things in various industries that are normalized because you step in and everyone is doing the same thing and you see it all around. So if you start in an industry from a young age, you are raised to adhere to these beliefs or adhere to these ways of doing things. So what you're talking about in terms of that different perspective that you had when you came into the classical music spheres is exactly, I think, a perspective that was much needed. And you're not alone in sharing this, but I think that you gave voice to what so many people were already feeling and thinking without having sometimes the courage to speak up. So I want to thank you for really opening up all of these conversations on this topic and allowing for other musicians to feel that it's normal to think those thoughts and that there is change that is needed in the industry, that things don't have to be the way they are. Things don't have to keep being done the exact same way over and over again.
it's so true. I've seen more discussion across the board about mental health in music, and I think that it's really really wonderful. It's really good.
Yeah.
I think that's what we need because there's a lot of good things about music. And the classical music world does have a lot of redeeming qualities, but I think what we need is some type of transformation so everyone feels welcome and feels like they have a healthy, environment to grow in a way that actually matters.
Yeah. And I think we have to think about the behaviors that we have in our roles as teachers, our roles as colleagues, so that the industry as a whole, I mean, the community as a whole is healthier for everyone.
Yeah. I think we're on the way there. We still got a ways to go, but we are definitely on the right track.
Yeah, I agree. I think, and for me, I see my journey started with wanting to help my students practicing, and I realized that, well, quickly I realized that It's a human being practicing, and sometimes the problem with not practicing something is not that they don't want to or they're incapable of, is that they're hurting in some way. And
Yeah,
that's what we need to address. So that's why Mind Over Finger became so much more about this idea that it's the human that's playing music that needs to be nurtured and heard and cared for.
I really resonate with that. I think some of the best teaching that I've had over the years are from people who have this philosophy, like the person comes first and then the music follows. And I think there's a lot of ways that, old school teachers, it's like that's so separate. Like the music's over here and you leave your personal problems at the door. That's the kind of attitude I can sense, especially being at the school I'm at right now. But I think I've grown, at least I think my growth has been the biggest when I'm under people who care about the human first. And the music comes, it does come after, like for sure. Like when you take care of the human, of course are going to work better, of course you're going to practice better, of course you're going to feel better performing. So yeah, I totally resonate with that.
Jelaine, you have so many followers. You have built such a beautiful, strong community, and you're very, very much in touch with them, very much in conversation with them. What do you hear from them that they need? Where are they hurting? What do you see as needed in the community?
I think it's changed over, the few years I've been doing it, but right now it seems like people are in a crossroads. They know that mental health is important. They believe it's important, but they still don't have, the environment, the sculpture or something to hold those habits that they know that they need to build. So a lot of people aren't motivated to practice. People aren't having consistent practice. That seems to be the biggest thing right now. I just did a poll on my stories like maybe last week or a few days ago. And I'm like, what's up, guys? Like, what are you guys, what's going on in your life? Overwhelmingly, people responded that they didn't want to practice, that they couldn't find the motivation. They want to do these things, but it's just like they don't have the right setup. So I've been thinking people are probably burnt out or overwhelmed with all the information that they're getting. Like they still want to be musicians, they still want to do this work, but they know that they have to, kind of veer away from the classic, routines that classical musicians face. And I don't think people have solved that problem yet. I kind of feel like classical music as a whole is not, moving as fast as we are. I feel like we've made a lot of, you know, progress in terms of the way we think about music. At least I could be biased because I have this page, and you could be biased because you have you have mind over finger. But I feel like we're making big strides to more healthy, living and practicing. But I think there's a lot of things that need to be done quicker to support the change that's happening in musicians' philosophies, because um, it requires us to take more initiative to take care of ourselves. And I think before there was no initiative to take care of ourselves. The initiative was to practice no matter what. By any means necessary, you get your butt in the practice room. So I think that's changing. But I think we're gonna nudge like the classical music world a little bit more.
I agree. Yeah. And I'm working on a workshop right now that will have taken place by the time this episode comes out, called Mastering the Stage. And what I think people would find surprising about this, and if they listen to the episode, they can go back and watch the replay. Um, is that mastering the stage is not only about practicing, it's so much deeper than that. So when you're talking about motivation, it cannot come from an outside source. That's not sustainable. It can, in some ways, be inspired. Maybe there's a spark of inspiration from an outside source rather, but it's the connection to our why, to our deep purpose inside. That's what really ignites uh, a fire that keeps the fire going and with all of the ups and down. I don't think motivation is a straight line. It goes up and down all the time. And in what you're talking about, yes, we are nudging it, and I want to encourage everyone to start by trusting themselves, their inner voice, so much more. I think that's something I'm seeing so much around me from either people who get in touch with me or my clients is how we have a tendency, because we were indoctrinated this way, to look for answers from our teachers, our mentors, the masters. And I think that, yes, we need that information and listening to the inner voice, to this intuition that we have. So if we hear something from inside, to listen to that voice. And I think that all of the little nudges that we can give are going to be helpful. And then at the same time, everybody, we all need to listen to ourselves, really develop this self-trust.
I think that I totally agree. I'm so glad we're on the same wavelength about that because I think that the inner voice, something that I'm learning now being at Rice, is that this inner voice comes out in the most, how do I say, here I'm very busy. I'm very like there's deadlines to the max. There's always something to be doing. And I found that the times that I'm super busy thinking about or stressing about, all these extra performances or whatever I have to do, my inner voice is kind of dampened a little bit, or I can't access this inner knowing because the stress of everything is clouding something. And when I feel calm and when I feel like I can actually relax and, work on my practice or work on something that or classical wellness or something in my own without any outside stressors, I feel like I get a lot better work done
Mm.
too. So I think that the trust comes from a place of calm. I actually don't know. This is just my experience, but when I feel most confident and when I feel like I know what to do, it's when I have, peace around me and not so much things to get through. You know what I mean?
Yes. Or advice.
Yeah, yeah, exactly. Exactly.
Yeah, you did a post a while ago. This was a story, and I think you took a Sunday off, and you were talking about how you went for a drive. And I was like, yes, like, these are the moments when we can get back in touch with the
With
source.
Yes, exactly. Exactly. And it feels hard to do. I never had a problem doing that because I love taking breaks. I mean, I've always said taking breaks will help you be better. Like I still believe that. And now I'm starting to understand more and more when you have when you're in a rigorous program, it feels like you cannot take time off. It feels like you don't have the permission to take time off. And I've never felt that even though my program in undergrad felt rigorous to me, my teacher was so supportive and so she had this same philosophy that we have. And so I never felt like I was going against the grain. I felt like, yes, it's hard, but I know that this is right to do. I felt that like inner confidence. And now that I'm here, I feel it's very old school here. And I do appreciate, obviously I'm here, so it's not totally bad, but it feels a little less like human centered and more results centered. Like they want you to be on top of it and they want you to be producing. And you can figure out what you need to do that, but we have this mold that we want you to follow, and that's basically your only option. So so you
Mm, yeah.
figure out like what to do, but do the thing that we want you to do. You know what I mean?
Yes, absolutely. I remember getting a piece of advice years ago. This was before my own grad school, and it really completely it was a huge paradigm shift. And I'm so glad that person said that one sentence because I was questioning going there because I was in the summer camp and the teacher kept yelling at me in the lessons. So I was questioning going to study with him for a couple of years. And I love him dearly, but there was a lot of yelling. And so I was talking to someone and she was asking, well, do you like him as a teacher? And I was like, yeah, he's great. He's very different than my previous teacher. So I feel like I could learn a lot. And then she said, well, go there and just do what he says for 2 years. And then after, you never have to do that again. Like you never have to just take it in and play along. And then
Yeah.
after that, you can do whatever you want. And for me, that shook me to my core because I realized, oh, I can go there and do the thing, but I don't have to buy the philosophy.
Yeah.
So
And
I know that, okay, if I go there, I know he's going to yell. So I can take the advice about my behold. And you and I were talking about this right before we started recording, but so I can take the advice about the behold and I can leave the personal yelling in the room. And after 2 years, I mean, for me, that was a brand new idea that I could do whatever I wanted.
it's very interesting to have that idea. And I think I've someone has told me that too before, but it's good to hear you say it because it feels like when you said it, I felt like, okay, yeah, I feel that too. Like it's not, and I feel the same. My teacher is wonderful in a lot of ways. I feel like I will learn a lot from him, but we have our differences, and I feel calm knowing that I don't have to, become him, because he's
Yeah.
him and me. So I can take everything that I can from him, and there's a lot he has to give. So I'm happy to be under his tutelage, but it's good to know that we are always our own person first, and we don't have to mold ourselves into be someone else. I think more and more people are starting to get that.
Yeah, yeah, yeah. I love that. What about some of the, I mean, we've talked about, but are there other important takeaways that you've taken from this adventure with classical wellness?
I think the most important, let me think. I've learned a lot. I've learned a lot about business too, and that's something that I didn't really know that I'd learn about, which I'm seeing now that I'm getting closer to starting my career. I I realize that many musicians aren't set up to start a career. They're set up to win an orchestra audition or go to
Teach.
DMA and start, yeah, like that's it. Like, but there are so many things we could do. We are artists and we are creatives and we can, do anything we want. So that's like more of a practical thing I've learned about business and about that w- us as musicians, we have to, take the initiative to start learning about business because unfortunately that's not the primary focus of our learning or to become a performer, which I think is wrong, but that's a whole different discussion. The main thing that the main takeaway I have from classical wellness is that we have to listen to our inner voice and we have to look for it. That's what we should do by any means necessary. I said earlier,
Mm,
like the old school way is like get in the practice room by any means necessary, but I think it should be find yourself by any means necessary. Find your voice by any means necessary. And if that means you have to veer away from like, the regular status quo, then so be it. And you shouldn't feel guilty or embarrassed or shameful about that. And I think it's something I'm learning more and more, you know. It's not like you hear something or learn something and suddenly you're, you know, a different person, but it's changed my the word you said earlier. I can't think of it now, but it changed my view on a lot of
Mm.
things.
At a
You
paradigm.
Paradigm shift, exactly. It was a huge paradigm shift to know that I must do this. I have to find myself by any means necessary. I have to commit to this, and I can't let it go for the sake of, you know, checking boxes. So, I think that's one of the main consistent lessons that I've learned and am learning by doing classical wellness. It's that it's worth it, this kind of work. It's worth it
Mm.
even though it might feel bad in a way because, you know, we're taught to not care about this stuff. We're taught to ignore this type of stuff.
Yeah.
So at first it felt bad, but I soon learned, no, I you have to do it. Everyone should feel encouraged to do it.
Yeah.
So
Yeah, I totally agree. It's, you know, what the saying, what you resist persist. I think it's so true. I had one coach was talking about how, you know, life can be 50-50. There's great things and sometimes more difficult things. And if things are going well, we feel like, oh, this is right. And if things are not pleasant or they're challenging or difficult, painful, we feel like this means it's wrong. I shouldn't feel this way. And then we try to avoid this at all costs, to use your expression. And so in finding ourselves at all costs mean that we actually have to spend time with these emotions and think, why am I feeling this way? What is happening? And
yeah,
then when we start to do this and we can sit with all of these feelings and not fear them, because if we fear our feelings, then we're caught in a huge
right.
negative cycle. So
Yeah.
if we can actually sit with these feelings and welcome them and get curious and give them space, then we can get access to that inner voice. And then we learn to coexist with all of our feelings. I mean, it's not coexist, they're inside of us. That's not the
Yeah.
term I'm looking for. But we learn to exist with all of these feelings. And then we're not escaping. We're not, and I mean, then we be sorry. Now I'm like getting all excited. When we're not afraid of any feeling, then we're not afraid of trying things. We're not afraid of speaking up. We're not afraid of going forward with something because we know we have this capacity to handle all of these feelings. So I completely agree with you in terms of how sometimes we don't go there because we want to avoid these sensations, these negative feelings. But it's when we give them space that we can move forward.
Yeah, it's scary, those things, because that becomes totally unrelated to music a lot of times. I mean, sometimes it is, but when you're going deep into like why you feel certain things, you go back to your childhood, to a traumatic experience, and that's hard. So I get why people avoid it. I get why, but it feels so much better once you're on the other side.
Yeah.
So I'm trying to find ways to, you know, encourage, nudge people to, you know, do this work because it's so worth it in the end.
Yeah. The only way is through it, right?
Period.
Yes, Jaylene, I know you're very busy, so I want to make sure that there's plenty of time for practicing and all the school assignments, but I do have some questions for you from the rapid fire question, if that works.
Perfect. Yes, let's go.
What are some doubts and resistance, internal or external, that you had to face on that journey?
I know there's more, but I the one that just came to mind is I've I've had a problem with doubting my place here. Being someone who starts so late, and everyone around you has, you know, baby pictures of them playing with a cardboard instrument and stuff. I have doubted whether or not I'm cut out for this, and that's been hard, but most of the time I can get out of it, out of those thoughts, but I still have them and they're still like, you know, sort of how do I explain this? Like a it's daunting a little bit to feel do I belong here? I'm with a lot of like the big dogs now, so now I really have to step up my game, and I already am behind them from, 10 years. They have 10 years on me, so do I belong here? And I'm sure I say this because I'm sure everyone has had thoughts like that on some level. Like, am I cut out for this? Do I belong? Am I really meant to be a musician? And I kind of I've just had to turn off that voice. And it's been hard to do. It's literally taken years to like go from not being aware of it at all, of these unhelpful thoughts at all, to training myself to not give, a bunch of attention to these thoughts. But there is a way to ignore these thoughts. And I say ignore, but really it's process them and accept them and let them go. It's like, okay, these thoughts are here. You have them, obviously. So are you going to let it screw up your mojo? Are you gonna
Yeah,
like
yeah,
allow it to be there and figure it out, but not give it so much power?
yeah,
So that's the biggest doubt I've had. But even that, we have these motivational places we can look to feel better about ourselves. So it's a work in progress, but I definitely feel like that is the biggest doubt I've had, and I've thankfully been able to make it a little bit smaller. It's not totally gone, of course, but it's manageable.
yeah, yeah. Thank you for sharing this because I think so many of the listeners, as they hear you say this, probably feel the same way. I think it doesn't matter what level you're at, what profession you're in. I think all of us probably have these thoughts. Do I belong?
Yeah.
And you just voiced it out so beautifully. So I think that a lot of people can find a source of encouragement from what you were saying. What's interesting is we give different weight to different thoughts. So when we just adhere and we don't take the time to question a thought, like, let's say you're thinking, oh, I don't know if I belong. And we just take that as a fact without questioning it, as if we're asking the same question, the reverse question, like, what if I did belong? And we realize that there's actually a lot of evidence for this as well. So there's evidence. We can find
Yeah.
whatever evidence we look for, but somehow we always look for the evidence of our insecurities and our limitations. When if we just nudge, to use that term again, nudge ourselves in the other direction, but yeah, but there's also plenty of evidence that I do belong, right? And
Yeah. I
yeah,
wonder if that's, I was long ago, I was researching, burnout and stuff. And one of the things I learned is that we have this caveman level, like, desire to be accepted because we would die if we weren't accepted way back when. So I wonder if it has anything to do with that wiring. Like, we're looking for potential threats or potential, things that make us not accepted. I just thought about that. I wonder if those two things are related, because it's definitely possible to nudge yourself to the positive side.
yeah,
But it's true that a lot of people automatically go to the negatives, and you have to like deliberately go to the positive in order to, change the way that you're automatically thinking.
yeah.
It's
I think you're right, and I totally agree with you, and that's something that I talk about too. I think we are wired for self-protection. So the first is always assessing risk. So there's like constant risk assessment happening. So I think you said it, we are wired for self-protection, and
yeah.
that makes so much sense. So then knowing that, we can be like, all right, thanks brain for keeping me safe. Now let's see if there's an alternative.
Yeah.
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 I love that. I always joke these rapid fire questions are never rapid, but
We'll try. We'll try.
what skills do you think young musicians studying today should acquire in addition to play their instruments?
Skills? Okay. Upholding boundaries. I don't know if that's a skill. I think it is. Figure out your boundaries and protect them at all costs. That will that will get you way farther than just tricking yourself into thinking you can do it all, or you can spend more energy than you have. That's a lesson that I learn over and over and over. But every time I uphold a boundary, especially when it's hard to uphold that boundary, for example, if you're saying no to something that would look really good on your resume, but you just don't have the time for it. You would literally be sleeping 4 hours a night. I've always felt not, I've always felt more calm, and I've always done better work after I have said no to something that I know is not right for me. After I've thought about it, once I listen to myself and I trust my inner voice that's saying, like, you're not going to be okay if you take on this extra project, I've always felt calmer and not so chaotic, which meant that I could practice better, do better work, give more attentive energy to whatever projects I do have. So I don't know if upholding boundaries is a skill, but I'm making it a skill. And definitely that's something that is really, really important. I suggest everyone, students or not, figure out your boundaries and uphold
Yeah.
them.
Yeah. I agree with that so much. And what you're saying is making me think too, in terms of how, right, sometimes there's an opportunity that comes up and you're like, yes, I
Yes.
don't care if I only sleep 2 hours a night. I really want to
Yeah.
do it. I'm just going to squeeze it in. But there are times when we say yes, when we don't want to do it because we think we should. Oh, that would look good on a resume. And I think that going back to our conversation about listening to the instinct, it's like if it's a yes, if it's a desire, then we know that, all right, I'll be tired for a week. It's okay. But
Okay.
so many times we say yes when we don't want to. And so what you're saying is so important. I totally think holding boundaries is a great skill to acquire.
Yeah. I yeah, you're right on the money. It's got to feel fun. That's how I determine what I want to do. Will it feel fun? Because of course it might look good on a resume, but who cares? To put it simply, who cares if you're injured, if you're burnt out, if you're miserable, why do it?
Mhm.
So that's kind of how I justify saying no. It's just sometimes it's not worth the pain. Sometimes it is when when you want to do it, when you feel, okay, this is the best thing I can see on my horizon right now, so I'm doing it, period.
Yeah.
Those times feel good. And when you say no to certain things, you leave space for more of these full yeses.
Yeah. Yeah, like they say, it's either a hell yes or a hell no.
Yeah, exactly. Exactly.
You were talking about how busy you are. So how do you maintain that balance that you were talking about? What the and balance. Is that even possible? I don't even know if it is. But so let's talk about how are you negotiating things right now with how busy you are?
Right now, since I started this year, I've promised, okay, 1 day a week off. I don't care what I'm doing. I don't care if I don't know even an example to give, but I just don't care. I'm taking a day off because I have to do it for my sanity. Like I have to have time to go for a drive or go to Ross Dress for Less or something, like something fun. I have to have time for that. As time goes on, you realize I've realized that I work well when I have a day off, but I can also work well when I have, an evening off and a morning off. And before I would never do that because always 1 day,
Mhm.
1 day off, period. No ifs, ands, or buts. I'm taking 1 day off. But I figured, first of all, sometimes it's literally not possible to take 1 day off a week. Like you have something every single day. So I kind of had to, at first, I'm like, no, well, then I'm skipping that one thing on that 1 day. That's my mentality. But you don't really want to do that because you want to do good work while you're, in school. You want to do the things you're assigned and you want to do them well. So I've been picking one or two afternoons or mornings where I just have a slow morning. It's not even that strictly do an activity outside of music, but having a morning where I can just relax and be for a while and get ready really slow and like really think about what I want my day to be like. Things like that have actually helped me a lot. So I
Mhm.
feel like I'm finding a balance between work and play because that type of stuff feels like play. Like when and these days that I take off, I find that I want to play music. Like I want to get my cello out and just, have fun. Don't have to do 2 hours of scales, but sometimes I feel like it. Like when I take this time off, I feel, oh, that would be fun if I tried to do the whole circle of fifths in such and such rhythm or da da da, anything. Like it starts to feel fun. So taking those little, blocks of time off is proving to be really, really helpful when I can't take a full day off. I still want a full day. Sorry to have rambled. I guess I had a lot to say just now.
No, I love that and how you experiment and give some flexibility around that and how you seem to be really paying attention to what helps you. I like Greg McKeon's expression, like nurturing the asset, and you are your own biggest asset. So the way that you do that is an example, I think.
I like that quote a lot. I might have
Oh,
to write it down after this.
it's a great book. It's Essentialism by Greg McKeon, and he talks about nurturing the asset. And I feel
Cool.
I resonate with this for sure.
Good.
Jalayne, how about a quick actionable tip that the listeners could implement today in their musical lives?
How about go into your calendar and plan at least one, block of time where you're going to take off. It can be a whole day, it can be 2 hours, but just some time that you're going to take off just to do something that you want to do, nothing that you should do or you have to do, but something that you want to do. Go do that. You have so much, you have so many practicing lists and, extracurriculars, but a lot of us don't think about the time off. We just kind of hope we get some, and when we do, maybe it's spent, repairing or resting or, recovering from the busy time. But when we actually plan it and have something to look forward to, it's just life is better that
Yeah.
way. I might be biased, but it just is.
That's great advice. And also, when we don't plan for it, there comes a time where we need it anyway. So we have to take it. And then we feel guilty about it. So we're somewhat resting and at the same time struggling with feeling like we should be busy. So, all in all, it's very stressful to rest under those circumstances. So, might
Exactly.
as well plan for it. And then you can rest physically, mentally, emotionally, all of it.
Yep. We're on the
Yes.
same wavelength.
I agree. Jillian, tell us about all the beautiful offerings that you have. I know you have an event coming up. You also have a practice journal. So many great things that you're offering.
So the event, the Musicians Wellness Symposium, that's happening June 3rd to June 7th. And it's an online event. It's 5 days long. And basically I've invited I they're experts, 5 experts in important topics that classical musicians need to be educated on, but aren't given, proper resources. So there are 5 topics: performance anxiety, practice health, body, injury prevention, um, project management. So I think of that as burnout prevention.
Mm.
And there's a bonus workshop on entrepreneurship. So I because we need to know how to make money. So, and the host of this podcast is going to be one of the guest speakers on performance anxiety. So I'm very, very excited for this. I feel like we have the best of the best, coming for this event. So that's happening on June 3rd to June 7th. Um, Registration closes on May 1st, so you have lots of time to think and, you know, figure out what your summer's going to look like. And I hope that as many people can join as possible because I feel like this is very important stuff. I also have a few, digital guides for iPad users, or I mean, a lot of people print them out. I have a practice journal that aims for organized and healthier practice. So it goes into a lot of planning and organizing in a way that is helpful for the musician. And there are some, journaling prompts in there to help us become more aware of what we're doing. I'm also going to come out with a burnout guide. It'll be a guided journal. So it's still in the works, but that's going to be something brand new that I think a lot of people will like. I already like it and I haven't. Yeah, be sure to check out my website. Definitely check out the symposium. That's the biggest thing that I think will help as many musicians as possible. I really believe in that. So, yeah, everyone check that out.
Yes, I'm going to put all of these links in the show notes. Jalayne,
Perfect.
I really want to thank you for coming on the show, but I also want to publicly thank you for what you're doing for the community. At the beginning of the interview, I talked about like normalized behavior. And I think that you, as I said, gave voice to people who had those feelings. And I think I cannot think of a single musician who has not experienced fear or doubt or exhaustion, burnout, but it was normalized not to talk about it. It was normalized to project strength at all times. And what we need is a place where we can normalize talking about it and being real so that, yes, then we can show up really strong from a place of feeling strong. So I really want to thank you for the work that you're doing and for being this guiding light in our community.
That means so much. I might have to take a little snippet and, put it in my phone to just listen to when I'm feeling sad. Thank you so much. I feel very lucky and uh, I try to avoid using this word, but I feel very privileged to, be able to do this and be alongside people like you. And I think we're doing good work. I think we're like changing, low key, we're changing the classical music world. So, well, we're transforming it. We're not changing it, but we're improving it. We're making it better. So I'm really happy about that.
Thank you, Jelaine.